morning, Supervisors. You'll notice from the front cover of our crop report that we're highlighting the highest number of export shipments ever sent in a single calendar year by Tulare County growers and packers. We had 33,049 export loads leave our county for foreign markets. And we're also celebrating the fact that we had the highest ever gross value ever reported by the Tulare County ag industry in our crop report statistics. And I wanted to point out from page 1 of the crop report some trends that I've noticed with our permanent plantings. Overall, we had a 6,600 acre increase in the number of trees, vines, and bushes in the county, and a decrease by 32% of the number of non-bearing acres, which means we've got a lot of young trees that are now coming into production. Unfortunately, we had over 2,200 acres of stone fruit pushed out to plant other things. And those would be apricots, nectarines, peaches, and both kinds of plums. Our citrus acres remained relatively constant. We had an increase of 122 acres, but over 2,000 acres of citrus came into production. So those would mostly be mandarin oranges and some navel oranges. We also had a significant number of nut crops planted. Pistachios, walnuts, and almonds, over 5,100 acres. And almost 3,300 acres of grapes, which would be wine tables and raisin grapes, all three included. And of course, blueberries and pomegranates are still increasing in production, but not as at a highest rate as we had in previous years. We've got 9 different commodity groups in our crop report, and 6 of which had an increase in overall gross value. We grow 120 different kinds of crops for 2011. Our field crops, we had significant rain events in 2011, which allowed for dryland oat and wheat grain production. And grain and hay prices overall were much higher than the year prior. Our cotton acres increased, and as well cottonseed prices increased. And we had $13 million worth of miscellaneous crops produced in the field crops category. Our nursery crops is very dependent on the economy, especially the landscape shrubs and trees. But there was a modest increase. Most notably, there was a 45% increase in the deciduous fruit and nut trees that were produced and sold in Tulare County. Our fresh fruits and nuts remained relatively stable, but I wanted to point out that wine raisin and table grapes had another exceptional year. The value was 9% over last year's value, which was incredibly high, so that's good for them. Our apiary products had a significant increase, but that wasn't due to prices. It was due more to an off citrus honey production. Our seed crops had a slight decrease, but it had to do with the number of cotton acreage in the seed program. Industrial crops include lumber, and there was a pretty significant increase in price. Livestock and poultry, the cattle prices and hog prices were very good the entire year for 2011, and they still continue to be that way. And livestock and poultry products is where our milk production fits in. So we had over 11 billion pounds of fresh milk in 2011. And it's the first time that milk and milk products went over the $2 billion mark, which is pretty significant. So that makes our milk and milk products 37% of our overall gross value, which is incredible. And it shows how important dairy is to our county. We have 43 crops that are at or above $1 million. Dennis Haynes, our staff biologist, told me that that's been on a slight decrease, and we don't know whether that's because of the economy or most likely because of the cost of production. Our top 5 commodities rarely change much. They might flip-flop a number, but 4 of these commodity groups increased in value, and it was navel and blanche oranges that had a decrease, but 2010 was a very good year for oranges. And our overall crop and livestock value for 2011 is $5,629,396,000. So that's 11% over the 2008 figure when we just went over the $5 billion mark, and then 16% higher than 2010's figure. So right now we stand as the #1 ag county, but Fresno will introduce their crop statistics sometime in late September or October. Last year they were at $5.9 billion, so the trend is a little bit higher values for the surrounding counties, so I suspect that we will stay in the #2 spot, which is still an important place to be. We exported to 85 different countries, and I thought it would be good to show you the types of commodities that we export the most. And you can see that citrus is, we're the #1 citrus county in the state, so we do export a great deal of oranges. Oops. I spoke to Kelly Krug. He's a deputy director of National Ag Statistics, which is a branch of USDA. And they put out statistics every year for California dairy production. And several places in the booklet, they brag about Tulare County and its importance to the overall state production. So we were #1 at 27% of the state's supply of fresh milk and milk products. And then 4 other San Joaquin Valley counties made up a good portion, and then 21 other counties made up the balance of 28%. And I thought I'd give you a different kind of statistic. We have almost 490,000 milk cows in Tulare County, and if they produced milk one day, they would fill the Tulare milk glass or water tower 33.6 times. That's in one day's production. And so I wanted to thank all the staff that helped compile the crop report statistics, and Dennis and Vanessa and Steve Monk. It's the first time we went with a color brochure, which is pretty exciting for us, and I think it makes a big difference. And Raphael helped put together our display of Tulare County produce. And all of the ag industry that helped, we couldn't do the crop report without bugging them to find out what their yields and prices were. So we really appreciate their efforts.
Vice Chair.
Yeah, Marilyn, I was noticing that manure was down $79,000. I know that Mr. Maples was asked that question.
Yes, but they went up 1 spot on the $1 million list. Last year, I think they were 39th. And I wanted to point out that we did include a world map on page 12. We got the idea from Merced County. All they ship is almonds and maybe pistachios, and they put stars on their world map where they export to, but Steve was noticing that all you can see is stars and no countries, so we went with just coloring them in red.
I think when I look at the citrus figures, because that's dear to my heart, we've kind of set around 550 million to 600 million a year. If you drive through the citrus belt, you will see how many acres are not in production right now because they're being rejuvenated with new plantings. So I suspect within the next 10 years, that number is going to go up substantially from where it is today. But it's amazing that we were able to keep the gross value about the same with all the acres that are out of production. That's observation.
And I think it's because we're exporting more and more. You know, we've got industry groups working with the USDA, APHIS folks, and foreign trade partners on that. So we should see that trend increase. And also with 2,200 acres going into production this year, that will increase over the next couple of years. Just that, with that alone.
Sure. Marilyn, thanks for the presentation. I couldn't help but notice that I came on the board in 1998, and here we are, 14 years later, and we're almost double the dollar amount. It's just kind of puts in perspective. It wasn't that long ago to see this kinds of increases. Is remarkable to me. The other thing also is always the dynamic aspect of agriculture, the changing. I mean, again, going back 14 years ago, I suspect that we were looking at something like pistachios. It would have been a very small, maybe a couple thousand acres. Here we have pistachios now with 33,000 acres either in production or coming in production, and almonds growing significantly. And then things that are much less, like I remember cotton used to be 150,000 acres of cotton in this county, and it's down considerably because of the dairy industry. It's just a very, blueberries, whoever thought we raised blueberries in Tulare County, here we've got 1,500 acres of them. So it's just amazing to me the dynamic nature of agriculture and how it changes with the times, and it has to. I mean, that's how we're successful. And my kudos to the farmers and the field workers who make this happen. I hope they're profitable, because we always talk about this is the gross values, this is not the net values.
Doesn't include production costs.
And the net values are very difficult to achieve profitability in the world we live in. Just had a report this morning on the water system. We're looking at what they may be doing to groundwater and what it will mean to farmers and the kind of assessments it's going to mean for them on a per acre basis. And there's a continuing battle to try to be profitable in light of the regulatory world we live in and the cost of production, which we do escalate. So you have to go after those higher dollar products, and you have to be very smart about how you farm. And fortunately, we've got a lot of smart farmers out there, but I know it's not an easy time for them, although this is one of the better years for them. So that's what continues. Thanks.
Yeah, I think over the last 15 years, marketing has just become highly polished machine that our growers are taking advantage of. It's good to see.
Supervisor Scott.
I'll be real brief. Great report. I'm excited to see on the inside cover our little pitch here for our economic development group that we're kind of supporting and encouraging folks to get in contact with here in Tulare County. These Crawford reports, there are people waiting to receive these, and I think this is good that we're letting people know that we kind of are open for business. We'd like you to come look at Tulare County and be a part of a winning team. And it is great to hear that for at least the next couple of months we will be the #1 producing in California.
And we don't want our dairies to go to South Dakota. It's cold there.
There's not as many happy cows.
They're cold.
Supervisor Hannaford.
Marilyn, I just wanted to say thank you. I think this was a great report, and as Supervisor Kinoshita has his favorite, I'll say, in citrus, my favorite is dairy. And it's great to see the dairy industry doing so well in terms of total value, in terms of their output here, and that's organic. But if you look at some of the other items here, you can see grain and alfalfa and silage, all these different products that go into the dairies, those prices also increase. So the environment within which our dairies operate continues to be a tough environment, but Tulare County has positioned itself very well and done a great job advertising what we have here in our county. We've got one of the largest ag-related companies in the country coming to Tulare, and that's Alltech, and they're going to be constructing their facility this fall, and that's going to be a huge impact here to this area. But I think the more we advertise that we are open for business, and the more we really market the fact that this is the #1 dairy region in the United States, I think the more economic advantage we're going to be seeing here in our county. So great job, and let's keep up the good work, and hope that next year we'll pass Fresno County and be the #1 county. But if not, #2 is always a great place to be, and we have to remember what makes Tulare County great, and that's agriculture.
I do recall when we were #1.
Yes.
Because they had a very bad grape year, I think it was, in Fresno County or something of that nature.
Laugh in my office.
I think if you look at the display that the Ag Commissioner brought over, you'll see why we export so much of our fruit. And the fruit that you see there is not generally you see in the grocery store.
Not usually at a roadside stand.
But it shows the quality and the product we're producing in Tulare County. And I also like to thank your staff and yourself for putting this report together and moving with the times to allow us to inspect all the exports that we are sending out of the county. Any other questions or comments?
No, just everything. Thank you, Marilyn, and your staff and all the people that are out in the fields and doing the work every day. Great job. Appreciate everything you do. Would like to see the timber harvest numbers go up. We could certainly get
Production
that.
of numbers
There are
go
pork
up.
products out in my area, and just in general, just to improve our mountain areas, our watershed. And of course, the cattle and calves, which, they're doing very well. Of course, the price is better than it's ever been, so let's hope that stays up. Thank you for your hard work and your staff.
Thank you. At this time, we're going to open public comments. If there's anyone wishing to address the board on issues under our jurisdiction but not on our agenda, please come forward.